Of course, to the famous WWF matches of the past couple of years, pitting a patriotic Marine sergeant against an Iranian sheik, waving a flag with a picture of the Ayatollah on it. But now, anyone who follows pro wrestling knows that that matchup can never occur again. Why? Because Sergeant Slaughter has left the World Wrestling Federation and hooked up with a rival governing group. Pro wrestling is big business.
As the quintessential good guy, Sergeant Slaughter was a big draw for the WWF. But the Sarge wanted more money and a greater say-so concerning his career direction. That led to a parting of the ways with Vince McMahon.
On occasion, we're let down by some of our performers. It doesn't happen very often, but when it does, quite frankly, we ask them to leave because we're only looking for individuals that are striving for the excellence and the same goals of the World Wrestling Federation.
So you're saying that an individual such as a Sergeant Slaughter didn't so much leave to seek greener pastures as he was expelled?
I'd say that's an accurate statement.
The promoters are pretty greedy. I guess every promoter, every manager, every owner is that way. They want to keep as much money to themselves as they can.
Sergeant Slaughter.
So the Sarge marched off to the WWF's main competitors, Pro Wrestling USA, joining such former World Wrestling Federation stalwarts as Kamala, the Ugandan giant. And Straight Arrow Bob Backlund, a no-frills good guy who felt he didn't fit the WWF's flashy image.
Told me that what I do is not worth marketing. And if he's the boss, I didn't have a fight with him. I don't have any disagreements with him, but I have a difference of opinion. I just want to be Bob Backlund. I don't want to have green hair. I don't want to be a rule breaker. I try to be a good role model for our youth, and that's my part in professional wrestling. If it isn't, I'll drop out, and that's what I did.
In this battle royale, television is a key. So enter Eddie Einhorn, part owner of the White Sox, USFL honcho, former TV executive, and now an advisor to Pro Wrestling USA.
What I like about this business is they make money. It's a sport and entertainment business that has a control on their labor situation, unlike the sports I'm in. And it's a pleasure to see it and be a part of it.
Through the use of cable and syndication, Vince McMahon has taken his WWF nationwide. It's Einhorn's job now to try and do the same for Pro Wrestling USA. It's a coalition of major regional promoters who, while maintaining their separate operations, also get together to go national. There's Vern Gagne, a former champ based in Minneapolis who puts on shows throughout the Midwest. Fritz von Erich, another former wrestler, works out of Dallas. His world-class championship wrestling is seen in 62 American markets, as well as several foreign countries. Mid-Atlantic wrestling is viewed in some 30 markets, mainly in the Carolinas, Virginia, and Tennessee. Their big star is former champ Dusty Rhodes. Jerry Jarrett, meanwhile, promotes out of Nashville, sending his Saturday morning shows to more than 20 cities. Attorney Gary Juster promotes from Baltimore and fits the profile of the young professionals who make up a good part of wrestling's new fandom.
Wrestling traditionally has appealed to the working class man and woman, but there have been a lot of closet wrestling fans out there. People who would watch wrestling on television would maybe sneak down to the arenas once in a while, but maybe felt badly about it. And I think what you're finding in society now is that people will come out and do what they want and kind of let the others be damned, so to speak. If they want to see wrestling, they'll go see wrestling.
And after all, who can resist classy entertainment like this? A good guess would be that the wrestling industry generates $250 million a year in income. Much of it off gate receipts from a yearly attendance of 10 million. At the big arenas, a guaranteed sellout almost every time. 20,000 at the Garden in New York. Almost as many at the Spectrum in Philly. And recently at the Meadowlands in New Jersey, a huge crowd watched Baron von Raschke teach the Road Warriors a lesson. But you don't always need a major arena. At WMC TV in Memphis, they simply set up a ring inside a studio. Been doing it that way on Saturday mornings for years. And the ratings? Simply astounding. Often reaching 70% of the viewing audience. The big hero is local boy Jerry Lawler. He disdains the new showbiz influences in wrestling, preferring his grunts and groans the no-frills way.
It offends me greatly, but fortunately, there are a lot of people out there that are wrestling fans, and I think they're entitled to their opinion, and I think they're entitled to be fans, and I'm tickled to death that they're out there. And it offends me when somebody tries to take advantage of my profession and of those fans.
Who are those fans? Well, an independent research organization says 25 million people watch pro wrestling on TV, at least sometimes. 4 in every 10 of those viewers are female. Nearly half are between the ages of 18 and 34, considered a prime target group for advertisers. And it appears that the wrestling fan is fairly well educated. Why do these people watch? Different reasons.
Well, I think there's a small group that really gets into it, and they believe it, they think somebody's going to get hurt, they want somebody to get hurt, they yell and they scream, and they believe that the wrestling is for real. Then there's a larger group for whom it is theater, and they treat it the same way they would the A-Team or the Dukes of Hazzard. They have a willing suspension of disbelief, they get into it, and they know, of course, that nobody's going to really get hurt, but they suspend that belief while they're watching it. And now there's another group, it may have been there all along, but a much new blood, a new infusion of interest of people for whom it's a spoof.
But not everyone's laughing. Sports writer Ray Didinger of the Philadelphia Daily News recently wrote a series of articles about pro wrestling. He was impressed by the genuine athletic prowess of many of the performers. He says the vast majority were personable and intelligent. But here's the bad news.
I heard stories and incorporated them in my series of the wrestlers who had to cut themselves with razor blades to draw blood, that this was an accepted practice, that it was something that the promoters would just very cavalierly walk into the dressing room before a match and say, okay, fellas, I want juice tonight. And what that meant was you had to go in the ring and cut yourself with a razor blade. And I said to the wrestler when he told me that, and he pulled out the razor blade and he showed me how it was done, where he hit it. And he said the promoter would tell me when I had to do it. And I said, that's sick. And he said, no, that's the business.
A business which can sometimes be very cruel. Some wrestlers do make a handsome living, but others feel that they were continually exploited, lied to, and then blackballed when they spoke up.
If you decide to rewrite the script and do it your way, that could be enough to have you blackballed. I mean, they're clearly writing the script. You're reading the lines. And anytime you want to take your fate into your own hands, anytime you want to be the independent contractor that they keep claiming that everyone is, you run the risk of being blackballed.
While the wrestling business booms, it's still an industry with few, if any, employee protections. No unions, no pensions, haphazard medical reports. Didinger says it's high time for a change.
I think the business is generating enough money now that the fellows that are talking about trying to get a union established, trying to do something like get the wrestling equivalent of a players association, something where they can have their medical benefits taken care of, something where they can have some kind of insurance, maybe even a pension plan. If the business is really generating that kind of money, I think they owe it to the guys that are in there.
If a New York State senator had his way, there'd be no guys in there. Legislation has been introduced to ban wrestling in New York State. When we asked Ray Didinger to sum up his thoughts on pro wrestling, here's what he said.
It's a very strange business, and it operates in a way that is totally unlike anything else I've experienced in any other sport, entertainment field or anything. I mean, people say, is it theater? Is it sport? Is it theater sport? It's none of those. It's wrestling. It's something else. It's another world. To try and draw analogies between the two, I just don't think it can be done. I mean, it operates by a code and a sort of morality that is unique unto itself.